Welcome, and we're going to be talking about in today's video the pursuit of balance. I've done on my channel the Pursuit of Truth, which is a 3-part series. So if you haven't checked that out, I highly recommend you checking that out. It was a good series on the pursuit of truth, and in today's installment of the pursuit, we are talking about the pursuit of balance. And a pursuit of balance can be experienced, and a pursuit of balance can be reached in the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical states of being. When it comes to mentally reaching balance, mentally the pursuit and pursuing balance when it comes to mentally, this consists of pushing towards reaching a space of mental clarity, pushing towards reaching a space of mental stability, pushing towards collectively a space of mental balance, a space of being in a state of having that mental balance, being balanced when it comes to mentally rather than unbalanced, being stable mentally rather than unstable when it comes to mentally. The way that you pursue balance when it comes to mentally is by doing right by your own mental state of being. Therefore, the things that you do, the thoughts that you experience when it comes to mentally, and the thoughts that you are initiating, the thoughts that you are, let's say, in agreement with, the thoughts that you are validating, if for lack of a better term, having those types of thoughts that are going to assist you in the pursuit of being balanced when it comes to mentally. Also, not only that, but doing things when it comes to the physical, emotional, and spiritual state of being that can also affect and push you towards being mentally balanced. For example, putting in the actions that you have to put in when it comes to physically to reap the mental balance out of that. Or let's say having your emotional state of being in check in a certain way where you can benefit your mental state of being pushed towards a state of balance and pursuing that balance when it comes to mentally, and as well as spiritually being on the right path, being in the right spiritual space that can push you towards you being mentally balanced and you reaching and pursuing that space of being mentally balanced. Why is mentally balanced and the pursuit of being balanced when it comes to mentally important? Well, being balanced when it comes to mentally can give you and have you in a space where you can get through anything that so happens to go into your mental state of being. You can think of any thought when you're mentally balanced without that thought or that mental form or that way of thinking or way of communicating when it comes to mentally throwing you off and having you in an unbalanced. Those unbalanced situations and scenarios that you go into when it comes to mentally, when you're in the pursuit of balance when it comes to mentally, you're already searching, or not searching, but you're already working towards being in that space when it comes to mentally balanced. Therefore, the unbalanced things that you're dealing with are only going to be corrections on the path of you being balanced. It's only going to help you be in a space of being more mentally balanced. Another reason why one should pursue to be balanced when it comes to mentally is because when you're balanced mentally, you can be more stable, you can be more mentally secure, you can be more mentally building more when it comes to mentally. You can build up your mental state of being more once you're mentally balanced. And if you are in a state of being mentally balanced, you can have a deeper understanding, you can have a deeper wisdom and knowledge and a way of thinking about these things in a way that you are balanced, rather than trying to apply your mental state of being to something that you can't apply it to because you're unbalanced. Being in a pursuit of being in a balanced state of mind and a balanced state when it comes to mentally can have you able to get through and able to apply your mental state of being, able to apply your mind, able to apply your thinking, reasoning, and whatever that may be, using logic when it comes to mentally in the best way when it comes to using your mental state of being. And that can be a very application of being mentally stable or being mentally balanced when it comes to the title of this video. Like I said, the pursuit of balance. The pursuit of balance doesn't stop when it comes to mentally, because you're always going to be filtering your experience through your mental state of being. You're always going to be using your mental state of being in your mind to be thinking about things. You're always going to be using your mental state of being in your mind to be communicating about things, and to just use your mental state of being in as a general rule. So having and pursuing the balance when it comes to mentally is going to benefit one, it's going to benefit you, and it's going to benefit that state of being and state of well-being, for that matter, to be in a pursuit of balance when it comes to mentally. And when you are in a pursuit of balance when it comes to mentally, you will know more and have more wisdom and knowledge about how you should act out when it comes to physically, also how you should act out when it comes to emotionally, also how you should act out when it comes to spiritually. Just by being balanced when it comes to mentally, you can aid the other states of beings and use them as a gift, use it as a almost superpower to be able to use your mental state of being, use your balanced mental state of being to help all other areas of life. Help whatever it is that you're doing outside of that mental state of being, once you have reached and once you are continuing to reach a balance of mind when it comes to mentally. Just like I'm going to have another video coming up here where it's developing your full potential, and the full potential is never there, because your full potential is unlimited, because nothing is constant, nothing is stable except change, and therefore your potential is unlimited because it keeps changing no matter what. So developing your full potential, just like finding balance or the pursuit of balance, is something that is always happening, because you're always going to be experiencing change. You're always going to be experiencing this and this, but being in the pursuit of this, finding the balance, can get you to see a different perspective when it comes to mentally, can get you in a space where you can see a different perspective when it comes to physically, a different perspective when it comes to emotionally, a different perspective when it comes to spiritually. And who's to say that perspective isn't clear because it's out of balance? It's out of a pursuit of balance, so you may have a clear perspective of those things when you're interacting, when you're acting out of a state of balance when it comes to mentally. When it comes to physically, reaching the balance when it comes to physically, this is all about doing the right actions that will have you in a physical state of balance. Things that won't have you physically in a deficit, things that won't have you physically tired or physically just drained, or whatever that may be, that is seen as being physically outside of balance. But you will be in a pursuit of being balanced when it comes to physically. So knowing what's the right amount of energy to expend, what's the right amount of physical exertion to expend when it comes to this, in order for me to remain in a balanced state when it comes to physically. There's going to be physical actions that you have to put forward that all have different levels of physical exertion, and knowing and being in the pursuit of that balance is being aware and being consciously aware of, okay, how much energy do I have to put out when it comes to this? How much energy do I need to expend when it comes to this? What does my expenditure level need to be when it comes to physically, in order to be constantly getting the things done that you need to get done when it comes to physically, putting in the work that you need to put in when it comes to physically, while maintaining that pursuit of balance at the end of the day. So being able to have that perspective of that and being in a pursuit of balance when it comes to physically is going to have you not only with the actions that you're putting in and that relation to your vessel and the energy that you have when it comes to physically, but also being in a balance physically with your surroundings, being in a balance physically with the person, places, or things that you have to deal with. That's not saying, oh, I have to be on an even playing field, or I have to lower myself when I'm around these types of people, or higher myself when I'm around these people, or dumb myself down or smart myself up when I'm around certain amounts of people, just to maintain that balance. No, I mean, with you being in your power when it comes to physically, and being in a pursuit of balance when it comes to physically, you already carrying that energy is going to have an effect outwardly. That internal state of being is going to have the effect outwardly of you influencing the person, places, or things surrounding you or that you're dealing with when it comes to physically, as far as you are in a state of being balanced when it comes to physically. Also, being in the pursuit of balance when it comes to physically is thinking, what kind of actions am I taking? Are these actions that I'm taking right now having me in a space, in a pursuit of being balanced, or in a space of being balanced? Think about the actions that are opposite of keeping you in a state of balance. Some things that are possibly keeping you unstable, instability, that are reinforcing instability and unstableness when it comes to your physical actions. Those are examples of things that you can stray away from, things that you can attach from in order to put yourself onto a path of the being on the pursuit of balance when it comes to physically. Being in a state of balance when it comes to physically has its benefits, like every state of being has its benefits when you are in pursuit of the right things when it comes to being in that state when it comes to your states of beings. For example, being balanced when it comes to physically, you can take on any action, any opposition, anything that you have to deal with when it comes to physically, anything that comes into your atmosphere, anything that comes into your existence when it comes to physically. You will be able to weather that storm regardless of what that is, and going through those actions and through those weathering that storm, so-called, when it comes to physically and the things that you're dealing with when it comes to physically, through reaching those and through, like I've talked about, facing those challenges, facing that so-called adversity, whatever you want to call it. And I have a video on facing adversity. I highly suggest that you check that out as well. Getting through those actions when it comes to physically is going to reach you into a space where you're more physically stronger. Therefore, you're reinforcing the pursuit of balance when it comes to physically on a constant basis, regardless of what it is that you're going through. And being on the pursuit of balance when it comes to physically, it's all about doing the actions that are right for self, doing the actions that are right for your own physical state of being, and also, like I said before, being able to lead by the example, also be in that right state of being when it comes to physically. Therefore, when dealing with things externally, you can do so. And like I said, physically being in the pursuit of balance is a constant thing. It's never going to stop. You're going to constantly have things that you need to reinforce in order to maintain being on that path of being on a pursuit of balance when it comes to physically. There's going to be things that you're constantly dealing with. Change is a constant, especially physically, because we live in a reality where things are constantly changing. Therefore, one should be constantly on the pursuit of balance when it comes to physically, and therefore reaching that space when it comes to physically is something that you can find yourself and exist in when it comes to physically being in the pursuit of balance. One second here, guys. just getting things figured out. When it comes to reaching balance, when it comes to physically, like I said, being on that pursuit of balance, regardless of what it is that you're dealing with, can benefit that state of being, and benefit your well-being when it comes to mentally, benefit your well-being when it comes to spiritually and emotionally. When we talk about, a good one, which is the pursuit of balance when it comes to emotionally, doing the right things, putting in the right actions, validating the right feelings, validating the right ways that you react, and react to the stimuli of not only your internal realm but also the external realm, is how you react to that. React to things emotionally when it comes to seeing it through a lens, therefore to pursue a space of balance emotionally. See it through a lens of what needs to be done in order to reach the space of reaching that space when it comes to being balanced emotionally, reaching that space when it comes to being strong emotionally, reaching that space when it comes to being wise emotionally, reaching that space when it comes to being stable, being in a space of balance when it comes to emotionally, is something that you can reach through listening to the way that certain stimuli make you feel, the way that certain stimuli have you reacting to, the way that you react to certain stimuli, the way that you feel in regards to the response of certain stimuli. Therefore, you can get more and more used to interacting, being aware of your emotional state of being, and there being able to go from that point on in a pursuit of balance when it comes to emotionally. The emotional state of being and finding balance to that emotional state of being, it's almost like what some people call a state of peace, but I would call it a state of wholeness. Rather than having a piece of something, I'd call it, well, no, you're actually emotionally reaching balance, which is giving you a state of wholeness, balance towards what you once always had, what you always were when it comes to your emotional state of being. The reminder of what you are, and that you are enough, and that you are whole, rather than having a certain peace. When I get that, it's a figure of speech to have peace, calmness, whatever that may be, but a pursuit of balance is much more beyond just the energy of peace. It's actually beyond, and it has to do that, and it has to do more with being whole when it comes to emotionally being balanced, and emotionally finding that state of balance is something that you can constantly work toward. It's something that is not ever going to end in this existence that you find yourself in currently. Finding that and finding the reasons to be on that balanced state when it comes to emotionally, and finding the purposes and the ways that you reach that state of being emotionally balanced are far important to the pursuit of balance when it comes to emotionally. Emotionally reaching a state of balance can be very reachable and can have its own effects on the mental, physical, and spiritual state of being, and their state of well-being, that is, for the matter, as long as your emotional state of being is in check, as long as your emotional state and your emotional status is in a state of balance. There's no thought that you can't deal with. There's no difficult thought that comes your way that you won't be able to emotionally react to in a way of balance. There's no way of thinking or way of reasoning that is difficult enough to get you out of that balance when it comes to you already being balanced and already being in a constant pursuit of balance when it comes to emotionally. There's no physical thing that can come into your space, person, place, or thing that is a difficult challenge that can possibly contest you being in that state when it comes to being emotionally balanced, as long as you are constantly in that pursuit of being emotionally balanced. There's no, like I said, emotion or reaction to stimuli that you have to deal with that's going to have you out of that existence of being emotionally balanced. There's no, let's say, spiritual aspect to an event, spiritual aspect to a stimuli that you're reacting to when it comes to something on your spiritual path, or something along your spiritual journey, or something along your spiritual purpose, that if you aren't already in pursuit of balance when it comes emotionally, None of that is going to have you out of balance when it comes emotionally. So constantly be in a pursuit of balance when it comes emotionally. Therefore, all your states of well-being can be accounted for and can be supported in that manner, and supported in a manner of being in a pursuit of balance when it comes to emotionally. So moving on, when it comes to like the spiritual state of being, and when we talk about reaching a spiritual state of being balanced, this has to do with being on a pursuit of balance when it comes to spiritually, being in a pursuit of balance when it comes to your spiritual actions, being in a pursuit of balance when it comes to your spiritual duties, your spiritual obligations, your spiritual responsibilities that you have to carry out. And those actions that you are carrying out are going to be things that are going to get you more into a state of being balanced, the pursuit of being balanced when it comes to spiritually. Your spiritual path, your spiritual purpose, your spiritual reasons for why you do what you do, your spiritual existence, your spiritual journey, like I said, these things are automatically at the end of the day, because you're a spirit before you are even in the body, rather before you're even in the mind, therefore before you're even in the body, therefore you're even existing and reacting to that stimuli when it comes to emotionally. So you know that you're returning to balance. You're returning to that balance regardless of what you have to do along that path, what you have to do along that journey, what kind of work you have to put in when it comes to spiritually. The fact that you're putting those things forward, and the fact that you're even being aware of that consciously and having that perspective of balance when it comes to your spiritual state of being, when it comes to being consciously aware of that, you're going to be returning to balance. And a quick note on something that's returning to balance: anytime you have something that you're difficulty dealing with when it comes to mentally, physically, emotionally, or spiritually, think about balance. Think about how before you didn't used to struggle with these thoughts mentally. You didn't used to have a mental dependence to these certain actions when it comes to mentally. You didn't have these certain physical addictions when it comes to physically. You didn't used to have these certain physical challenges or obstacles to get through when it comes to physically. Emotionally, you didn't have as much emotionally stressors or being emotionally dependent on certain things when it comes to previously when you were balanced. You didn't have these attachments to, let's say, the spiritual nature of you having to depend on something externally to you to even seem or to feel or exist, think, feel or exist or feel or even seem to be spiritual by depending on something externally. So think about anything that you're dealing with ever. Think about a return to balance, a return to being balanced, because previously to those actions, you were who you were, regardless, and you were balanced in that way just by being who you are and being existing with who you are. So think about anything that you're going through with a return to balance. Think about anything that you're going through as a pursuit of balance. When it comes to spiritually, like I said, those actions that you do, the purposes that you're fulfilling, the journey that you're on when it comes to spiritually is already going to be something that's bringing you back and restoring that balance when it comes to you being on that pursuit of balance constantly. Like I said, you being spiritually balanced can, because it comes before these states of beings, of course it's going to have renderings, of course it's going to have its effect on the mental, physical, and emotional states of being, and well-being for that matter. So being in a pursuit of balance when it comes to spiritually is going to benefit, and being in that pursuit of balance when it comes to spiritually is all things in existence, is reaching the balance of all things when it comes to spiritually, the balance of all possibilities when it comes to spiritually, restoring the balance of all possibilities when it comes to spiritually, restoring the balance of all abilities that you have when it comes to spiritually, restoring the balance of all spiritual perspectives, restoring the balance of all spiritual energies, all spiritual essence, all spiritual systems that you have, and restoring that balance in that way. You know, making sure that you are keeping these states of being in check, and therefore making sure you are in a constant state and reaching towards being in that pursuit of balance to be in a balance at the end of the day. And not just at the end of the day, but at the end of the night, at the end of the morning, at the end of all experience that we are in and that we are a part of, you can be in that pursuit of balance. That's it for this one. I'm out.